5 people were injured, including 2 critically, in a ramming attack that took place in France on an island called Oléron. We're going to be talking about the very persistent radical Islamic terror around the globe and what is the true threat of that. The U.S. military can only do so much. We've pulled many forces out of the Middle East and those wars, and now we're focusing more on drugs. We're going to talk about the calculus there. This is a place called Oléron in France. I'm going to pull up a map here, and you can see Oléron is marked right there. It's a tourist island, mostly local tourists, I would say. And a guy ran down like 9 people. He was a 35-year-old French national, but when he was arrested, he shouted, Allahu Akbar. And so the French government is saying, we have not been able to determine a motive yet. May have something to do with drugs or alcohol or mental illness. And they just really dance around the idea of saying this is another radical Islamic jihadist who's just out to kill people. The concerning thing about this is so many of these people have been into the society that they're attacking, whether that's in France or other places in Europe or the United States, for many years. It's not like they just showed up from Syria and they immediately go on to start attacking people. They stay in America for a long time, and they should be assimilating and becoming Americans and valuing the things that we value, things like personal responsibility and freedom. But instead, they weaponize that freedom against us in the West in order to try to kill us and try to take us over. I'm sure that you're watching elections that took place last night, and we just elected a radical Islamic guy as the mayor of the largest city in America, New York City. And the stuff that this guy is talking about, not only is he migrated to the United States, he is a diehard communist and also a radical Islamic terrorist who hates Israel and supports Hamas and Hezbollah and things like that. I'm not being hyperbolic here. If you just listen to some of the things he says, it's downright terrifying. Take a listen to this short quote from Mamdani's victory speech last night in New York City.
Prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
What he's saying is that we need to make the government a whole lot bigger and more powerful. He believes that the government is the answer to all our problems. That is not America, folks. That's not an American ideal. Zohan is trying to buy votes from people. He's saying the government will take care of you cradle to the grave. And that, my friends, is not only terrifying, it's evil. The government that's big enough to give you everything you want is the government that's big enough to take everything you have. There is a large exodus of people fleeing New York City, and there will be even more. And these are not going to be the low income, low skilled workers. These are going to be the professionals, the millionaires, the people who pay all the taxes. That 20% of America pays more than 80% of the taxes in America. That 20% is not going to stay in New York City under somebody like Mamdani. And I'm tempted to say that Mamdani getting elected is probably a good thing in the long run, because when New York crumbles because of Mamdani's policies and the people who pay the taxes flee the state, you can be absolutely sure that Mamdani will just blame it on racism or something like that. Now, one of the things I want to talk about is this nexus, this connection we're seeing more and more of, where you have radical jihadists who are teaming up with radical leftists in order to attack the idea of America. At first glance, those two groups don't have that much in common. The radical left is all about gay rights, transgenderism, all this kind of stuff. They would absolutely celebrate if your kid decided that he wanted to surgically remove his private parts and become a girl. They would absolutely celebrate that. And then you have these Islamic fundamentalists who would literally throw you off a building if you said that you were gay or transgender. So you'd say, like, well, how do these people keep showing up at the same place for the same reasons and calling for the same things? How do you have somebody like Mamdani, who is an Islamist, but also is pro LGBTQ plus minus ampersand exclamation point, whatever they call it today? It's not theology that binds them together. It's targets. The radical left brings megaphones, money, and legitimacy to these protests, and Islamists bring grievance and threat and menace. They're the hard arm, the militant wing. And more these days, we're seeing a lot of crossover there. We're seeing a lot of violent leftists in America as well. They have shared antagonists. They hate the US-led world order. They hate free market capitalism. Both camps justify extreme behavior toward an end of what they call liberation. And by combining forces, the Islamists are able to launder their violence and reframe it as resistance. They put some Marxist rhetoric on their terror attacks, and now it's human rights activism. So this isn't new historically. The 1979 Iranian Revolution began as a big tent, Islamists plus liberals, nationalists, and communists all together, united against the Shah of Iran. Then, once they got rid of the Shah, the Islamists consolidated power, killed off the communists, the liberals. Well, now all that's left is the Islamic jihadists. And this is where it gets concerning for America, because you might just say, well, hey, we're a diverse country, and if people want to vote for a Muslim, then let them go ahead and vote for a Muslim. Number one, I would say that part of the reason why people are feeling drawn to Islam, they're drawn to the power that Islamists wield. They're drawn to the very black and white thinking that Islamists have. And you see this is very common in America and the West, is that as the West has moved away from the moral underpinnings of Christianity, the importance of the family, the sovereignty of the individual, the dignity of human life, things like that. They wanted to replace all that with a whole lot of nothing, just do whatever you want. What they have currently is this wishy-washy morass of do what you feel like doing, live your truth. There is no such thing as objective moral truth in the world. The problem with that is it's a very weak ideology. And so it's susceptible to stronger ideologies. And when Islam comes in, it brings a very forceful ideology that supplants the atheism, the secular humanism that has so taken hold in America today. Unfortunately, so many Christians have been brought up to believe that keeping your religion inside the church, inside the pews, as one, I think it was Pete Buttigieg said one time, that we don't think your religious expression should be limited. It's just that it should only take place in your homes and hearts. And that literally is called limiting your religious expression. I mean, when you can only express your religious beliefs in your homes and in your hearts, meaning in your heads, and not with your mouth, not in the public square, that worldview is actually a giant moral vacuum because it commits suicide on its face. It's a worldview that says it's true that there is no truth. When you allow an ideology like that to take hold, then don't be surprised when a very zealous Marxist, Leninist, pro-Palestinian Islamic jihadist comes to power, especially if he's talking about, hey, elect me and our government is going to take care of everything. This is a very big concern. Even bigger is the fact that there are external forces outside of America, outside of the West, who are funding and facilitating this shift. They're giving to support candidates from the bottom up, and specifically from the bottom up. They're looking for prosecutors, state's attorneys. They're looking for mayors and governors and trying to get them elected, people who have this stronger ideology. Look, in reality, folks, the number of Islamic attacks that are identifiable as being motivated by radical jihadism. It is astounding. There have been more than 55,000 Islamic attacks across the globe in the last 20 years. 55,000 of them. In Europe, right now, this year, we're seeing approximately 2 jihadi terror attacks a month. And this has been going on for a long time. I mean, a long time. This is not the kind of thing that, oh, well, it's just a one-off. This is from Wikipedia. List of Islamic terror attacks. And it goes back to the 1980s. But I'm just going to scroll down there. Look at 2014. This is the rise of the Islamic State. Look at this. 2015, boom, just tons all across the globe. Look at that. Still keeps going. 2015 was a banner year for Islamic terrorism. 2016 went down a little bit, but still had record numbers. Look at that. Every line on this is a jihadist attack. There's 2019, and I'm still scrolling. We get down here to 2025. Now, this is what I want to point out here. They have listed 1, 2, 3, 4. They have 4 Islamic jihadist attacks that are on their list for this year. The first one was January 1st in New Orleans, the ramming attack, where the guy drove his truck right down Bourbon Street in New Orleans and killed a bunch of people. There's a stabbing attack in Austria, a shooting attack, a terror attack that happened in India with guys from Pakistan and Lashkar-e-Taiba came across, and that's what precipitated the war, the short-lived war between India and Pakistan. And then they have the Mar Elias church attack, the Greek Orthodox church in Syria that killed 25 people and injured 63 others. So those are the only 4 that they have listed for this year. But what I want to point out, folks, this is just a representative sampling. What about the attacks on Christians, all the Christians that have been killed in Nigeria and Mali and across Africa? What about the almost daily attacks by radical Islamic terrorists in Israel? They don't even list one of those, and they have those almost every day. There's other attacks that have happened in the United States, in Australia, in Germany, in Belgium, in just all across the Western world that don't even show up on this list. Bottom line, this list says at least 48,000 Islamist terror attacks since 1979, causing the deaths of 210,000 people. The main target of these attacks is military, followed by civilians and police forces. The most affected countries are Islamic countries like Afghanistan, Iraq, and Somalia. However, they're not counting anywhere near all of the attacks. I have reported on many attacks that took place, for example, in Sweden. And I want to show you this video that I shot in Sweden. I think it was like 2017, that talks about the Swedish government. When they report crime statistics, they don't report anything about the nationality, the race, or the religious affiliation of the people that foment these attacks. All right. They stopped doing that in 2001, just to be politically correct. Some majority immigrant areas where police are as likely as not to be attacked if they enter have earned the name no-go zones. The Stockholm suburb of Rinkeby is one such neighborhood. 90% of the people living here are either migrants or children of migrants. Many come from lawless countries like Somalia and Syria, and some locals call the area Little Mogadishu. I've been to Mogadishu, and I can promise you after visiting Rinkeby, this is nothing like that. But that's not to say it isn't dangerous for people who are unwelcome here, namely the police and journalists. In 2016, several film crews reporting here were attacked.
And attack.
And a police arrest a few weeks ago led to riots like this. I went in low profile, filming only with my smartphone. It earned me some unfriendly stares and a few questions, but I wasn't attacked. Residents I spoke with said they much prefer this place to the countries they escaped from, but nobody would agree to be filmed. One thing I did notice was there were very few young women. That got me wondering how the young men here ever hope to date or get married. Reports from Sweden say there's been a spike in sexual assaults recently, but it's hard to say if this is migrant-related because Sweden stopped recording the nationality of people accused of crimes in 2001. And this leads to an even bigger question. Why? So it is a huge problem that Europe just doesn't want to face. And look, this has a huge impact on our lives. Do you understand that? And it's not just in Sweden or Syria or someplace like that. It's actually right there in New York City, where Mamdani just took over. Back in 2017, I went to New York to report on a radical Islamic jihadist who ran a bunch of people over and killed like 9 people.
Underscores that the terrorist threat is real. As we defeat ISIS and affiliated groups abroad, we must be vigilant here in our country as they seek other ways to attack the homeland. Inspiring such attacks through hateful propaganda has always been part of ISIS and other terrorist strategy. This underscores the need for the most careful vetting of who enters our country.
I heard a noise, I looked behind me, and I saw 2 bikes and 2 people go flying, and I went down and looked, checked it out. It was just chaos all down. There's a bike path, bikes, and the people scattered, all destruction everywhere.
These people come into the country and it's very hard for us to unite together. It's dangerous. I think they should have a really good check with them before they enter the country. I pause for a while and check them and let the good one come.
Yeah, find a way to do that,
Yes,
right? You're an immigrant yourself.
Yes, I'm an immigrant. I'm from Jamaica, but they need to be more strict with the people that they let into the country.
What happened yesterday was not okay. It will never be something any of us will just accept as inevitable. Since 9/11, we, again along with our partners at the local, state, and federal level, have disrupted or prevented 24 plots against New York City. Countless lives have been saved.
You see what happened in New York and you hear that he wants an ISIS flag outside his hospital room and calls himself a soldier of the caliphate. What do you think of?
It sickens my heart to see that kind of thing. And when I hear people about where we're going to send him, should we send him to Gitmo? I say we skip Gitmo and send him straight to hell where he belongs.
That only happened a few years ago. And there have been other jihadi terror attacks in New York since. And now we are seeing half of New Yorkers vote for a guy who supports that kind of thing and has said so. The reason why I wanted to do a whole podcast about this is not because radical Islamic terror is the most dangerous thing that we face. It's more because of this nexus that I talked about between the radical Islamic terrorists and the Marxist, Leninist communists. Why? Because communism has killed more people around the globe than every terror group by a huge order of magnitude. We're talking about probably 150 million people have died as a result of socialism or communism across the globe throughout history. So just keep that in mind. It is very concerning, and it's more concerning that this guy is a communist than it is that he's a Muslim by a long shot.